Welcome to Primitive Lifeways. In this video, we're going to take a first look at the LT Wright GNS. So stick around, we got a great show coming up. All right, folks, so I want to welcome you back. Now, this is my first time using this tool, so I'm new to the GNS. This was actually recommended to me by quite a few different people, so I figured I would call LT. LT was generous enough to send me one. Thank you for that. And what a perfect day to come out here and test this out. We'll do some carving work and light batoning. But before we step into that, I want to go over the package itself and talk to you a little bit about the tool. You can see it comes with a leather dangler sheath, a ferro rod attachment on the side. So we have that loop there. Now, I do not carry a ferro rod. My preferred method of fire is primitive fire, specifically the hand drill, and then I also carry a couple lighters. Nothing wrong with carrying a ferro rod. There's some folks out there that are very talented with a ferro rod, so if you want to include that into this package, again, you have that option. But primitive fire for me brings me closer to the natural world. It's truly a humbling experience to make primitive fire, especially with the hand drill, as challenging as it is, and it just brings on good vibes. As far as the knife, the overall length is 9.5 inches. We have natural micarta handles, a saber grind, 01 tool steel, and a nice sharp 90-degree spine. Now, as you can see, we have a piece of juniper that I've been working on, probably for the past hour or so. I've just been thinning it out and slowly turning this into a basket maker style atlatl. This is really a nice piece of lumber. Smells great. It has a really nice grain on it. Very few knots. And the knots that I do have are nice and shallow, so that shouldn't be a problem. But what I like about this piece, and the reason why I chose this, is because it has a nice bend from the center going right up towards the top. You can see that right there. And that's really ideal for making a basket maker style atlatl. I don't have to make any heat corrections. I don't have to steam bend it, or I don't have to use any dry heat. It's already done for me, so nature did the job for me, and much appreciated there. By the time I'm done with this, it'll look somewhat similar to this atlatl. This is just a piece of oak. You can see again we have a nice bend right in the center going up top. I have a spur here and then finger loops towards the bottom. And once I'm done with that, I'll throw this a few times. And depending on how it throws, I might have to add weights. I usually use pipestone. I have a few pieces here that I'll shape out into weights, and we'll get this thing well balanced. Back to the GNS, I'm really enjoying the 90-degree spine. I can see how this can come in very, very handy in the field. Everything from firecraft to bowcraft and atlatl making, especially with bowcraft, where we want to go real slow. We want to remove a small amount of material. You can just take that 90-degree spine and make small scrapes in the area that's stiff. So you can see how that works. Now, this juniper is pretty dry still. It does have a bit of moisture in it. We've been having some pretty crazy thunderstorms for the past week, being it's monsoon season out here in Arizona. So wood tends to suck up moisture, and it swells when moisture affects it. But again, there's not that much in this piece. It's still pretty dry. I can just feel a bit when putting the piece of lumber by my lips or next to my cheek. I can feel that there's a bit of moisture. Not too bad though. we can still make fire with this bit of material that I'm scraping. So we just have a small pile here. If I were actually lost in the field, I would want a pile 5-10 times this size for a good sustainable fire. And you know, it's easy to just take the lighter and light this on fire. That's a given. It'll go up with no problem. And again, that's my first go-to. But the fact is, there's a lot of folks out there that carry a ferro rod, and this is their primary go-to. Again, nothing wrong with that at all. So with a ferro rod, I can get this going as well. All I would do is just pull back on the ferro rod and direct the spark into my designated area. And you can see we have fire now. All right, so I'm gonna have to get a move on here with some of these carving tasks. I got a massive monsoon storm blowing in. Can hear that. A lot of thunder, lightning, and last thing I need is the camera equipment to get soaking wet. So right here, I just have a piece of sandbar willow, and I was actually going to turn this into an atlatl dart. I made some heat corrections to it, but I'm looking at the grain, I'm looking at the shape of it, and it's just too twisted. So the best thing for me to do is either turn this into deadfall traps or scrap it, maybe make a few bow drill spindles out of it. I figured I would cut certain sections for bow drill spindles, but I'm also going to carve this down and again do some slicing tasks with this GNS. So the first thing I want to do is just kind of take off this funky dog leg. You can see it just kind of levers up here, and I'll just beaver chew around it. And then I'll flip it over and do the same thing on the other side. And utilizing the knife like this can substitute for a saw in a way. With some of the thicker stuff, I mean, I would definitely prefer a Baco Laplander, but you got to use what you have in your pack, and if you only have a knife, you got to utilize that source. Push cuts, it does very nice. This thing is razor sharp. It is hair popping sharp, and like I said, I've been thinning down that piece of juniper for quite some time, and this thing is still splitting hair. So we'll just slice this up a bit, take off some material. Actually, I think I'm going to turn this into a bow drill spindle. This is a really nice straight piece. It's pretty thick. So once I remove the bark on this, it'll make a great spindle. So again, just beaver chewing around it. Until I can get to a point of breaking this in half or snapping it off. Alright, so I'll just set that to the side. Okay, so now we'll do a little bit of slicing. Again, this is willow. This is a really soft wood. So it's not like I'm using a piece of mountain mahogany, which is all around me, or a piece of oak. This will do quite well at slicing, which is expected, especially a knife of this profile. Now, when I make traps, I actually prefer some of these softer woods like cottonwood or willow, just because it's a lighter material, especially when it's dry. And when you're using a softer, lighter wood with less density, the trap is going to be much faster than a harder piece of wood. Slices really well with this piece of willow. We will get into some harder woods. I'll probably end up doing that tomorrow once a storm passes by, but I like it. All right, so we're gonna move on to a bit of feather sticking with the same piece of willow. I just switched out the stone for a oak block here, and that's really smart when doing feather sticking. You don't want to drive the knife into another stone. That'll damage the edge. So I'll choke up on the knife a bit, and I'm just going to remove small amounts of material and just kind of slice through this, just like this. And that's really where a thin profiled blade comes in handy, is with applications such as this. You're driving less steel into the material, and it's so much easier to process wood. 1/8 of an inch, 3/32. I'll tell you, 3/32 is really where I like a tool. The slicing capabilities of a blade like this is just very nice. You can see it just glides through. And you'll see as I'm carving, I kind of have the knife pitched up, and that's helping me get some really nice curls on this, and it's helping feather the material out. I've seen folks angle the knife down and kind of go with the contour of the blade. There's nothing wrong with that. My preferred method is just to kind of choke up again on that handle and just get nice fine curls. We'll go even finer. Yeah, the carving capabilities are so nice with this tool. Look at that. Just a real fine curl right here. And then we can just beaver chew around it a bit. Break it off, and I can use that to help aid me in fire.